Now let's bring in Amy Zalman for more. Amy is the owner of the Strategic Narrative Institute and a professor of strategic foresight at Georgetown University right here in Washington, D.C. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So, a lot to discuss here. Let's start with this concept of what's happening with jobs. A new report says 50% of jobs may be lost to robots and automation in the U.S., more in emerging economies. How realistic is that?
It really depends. I'm sorry to say that. But when these studies are created, they're only looking at one thing and one thing only, and that's whether the technology exists to replace a certain task or a job. So that's the only thing that 50% tells you, is that there's enough technology or it has reached a threshold where those jobs can be replaced. But they don't tell you anything about regulation, culture, the competitive environment, or other things which may shape that effect. But certainly claims that are very high have been forged now.
So people should perhaps take it with a grain of salt, that just because they can doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to. Now let's look at the type of jobs that you think will perhaps be most affected by this shift to automation and robotics.
Well, as you said earlier on the program, those that are most highly routinized are the first to go. So manufacturing, agriculture, mining, and like that. The second are those I would put in a category where content expertise can be turned into an algorithm or analyzed. So HR, human resources, and finance, potentially decimated at this point. And then third, a new surprise in the last couple of years is that service industry. So retail and hospitality are also being eaten into.
Now, which are some of the industries that are really embracing this the fastest at the moment?
Those with the highest labor costs. I mean, that's the short and maybe cynical answer, but anybody that's looking for greater efficiency is doing that. So manufacturing, again, they're the same: manufacturing, automotive, mining.
Now, in terms of countries, though, that are leading the charge, who's really at the forefront of this?
Well, the United States certainly is. Other advanced economies, again, with high labor costs, China, Japan, and Korea are buying huge numbers of robots, more than almost anybody else, in Germany as well, highly industrial nation that is automating quickly.
Now, we're seeing a lot of this combined also with artificial intelligence. We know that China's goal is to become a world leader in AI by the year 2030. So what is China doing currently, and what else would it need to do in order to meet that goal?
Well, all of these other factors suddenly become important. Once you have the technology, culture matters. What happens to people when there are huge shifts in the way the economy functions and what work means? Those start to matter, because destabilizing society otherwise is a challenge if you throw people out of work. Regulation matters, of course, and policy as well.
Now, let's also look. We know that scientists have really been on both sides of this debate about the benefits versus the harm that artificial intelligence can do. And we know that tech heavyweights Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg also faced off about this. Let's start by taking a look at Mark Zuckerberg's take. Here's what he had to say.
With AI especially, I'm really optimistic. And I think that people who are naysayers and kind of try to drum up these doomsday scenarios are, I don't understand it. I think it's really negative. And in some ways, I actually think it's pretty irresponsible.
Now, Musk actually responded saying that Zuckerberg had, quote, limited understanding of the issue. So, agree or not, AI is already a part of our lives. The future is definitely coming. What should businesses be doing then in terms of adjusting their strategy?
Well, that was a marketing claim that Zuckerberg was making. So, doomsday or not, what they should be doing is preparing policies and preparing practices so that they can take best advantage of AI, both from the point of view of profit making and from the point of view of making what they make best, and both in terms of business and society.
Now, artificial intelligence is often referred to as the, quote, fourth industrial revolution. And obviously with industrial revolutions, that also means streamlining of jobs, or perhaps jobs being moved into other sectors. As an employee, if you're seeing this future coming, what are some of the ways you can prepare yourself?
Well, one of the things is to understand the technology that's coming at you, get your head around that. A second is to think about what kinds of skills are going to be needed in the future and whether you have those. A third is to understand that the likelihood for many people is not that they're going to utterly lose their job, but that a lot of their job may be automated, and to figure out how they are going to personally and professionally manage a transition into a different kind of work. And education is just critical. The more highly educated you are still at this point, although there are exceptions like accountants and so forth, the more likely that less of your job is automatable.
So it's certainly some time to do some homework. Thank you so much. Good to have you back, Amy Zalman, owner of the Strategic Narrative Institute and a professor of strategic foresight at Georgetown University.